Hello and welcome to the 20th episode of the Select Characters Podcast. I'm Sam Yates. I will be your host, and joining me today on this game show, we have 3 contestants here, so let's put 60 seconds on the clock and let's introduce them. Over here, getting ready to climb Aggravation Peak to prevent trademark infringement, I have Enrique Cancel. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh boy, I'm a real boy.
That's right, and next to him, trying desperately to assemble the 3 pieces of the Golden Gorilla once again. Copyright infringement. We're not getting it. Christopher Anderson, what's up, man?
I'm finding it increasingly hard with every passing week to understand what you're on about, but well done, I guess.
All right, and over there gearing up for the physical challenge round, Ryan Dildine.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up?
Well, Redskins just lost, so I'm not happy.
to the Dolphins.
They literally lost like 10 minutes ago. So I'm a sad person.
You'll get over it.
That's okay. All right, we'll stand by because in round 2, all the points are worth double. You guys want to talk about what we've been playing?
Let's do it.
All right, another great week has passed for video games, and let's talk a little bit about what we've been playing. Let's start with Chris.
I've been playing Fable Anniversary. It's on sale on Steam right now, so it was only around €10, and I don't know what to think of it. I'm a huge fan of the first Fable. I played Fable: The Lost Chapters religiously back in the day when it first got released on PC, and I would have been all right with HD textures and lossless music, but it seems to me like they redid pretty much all the character models, and as a result of that, the art style looks a bit off.
And it's Fable 1?
Yeah, it's Fable 1, The Lost Chapters, so it's the base game plus that extra bit.
When you say, like, it looks off, like, in what way?
Well, for starters, the main character, the protagonist, the guy that you're playing, compared to his original appearance in the original game, he looks not completely human. And that can be said of most of the characters you meet in that game now. And I don't know, it's still endearing. It's still as endearing as it always was, because Fable has always been sort of cute in terms of graphics, but they look sort of scary now. I don't like it.
I don't remember really enjoying the first Fable. I remember I guess I fed some cheese to a tree, and that was pretty okay.
What?
Like, or a door. It wasn't a tree. It was a door. The door wanted some cheese.
The demon doors. Doors. Yeah.
I thought that was a neat concept, but other than that game was, I don't know, just easy to dismiss, I suppose.
Yeah, I find it hard to recommend this game if you already own the original. Only if you're really, really desperate to play that same game with slightly worse art style and better lighting and textures, and just leave it be. Just stick to the original one. It's not bad, but it's a bit unnecessary. I feel
it's not bad, but it's not good either.
Yeah, and the first one is just better, not in terms of graphics, but just an overall feel, I guess.
It's a strange thing to re-release too, sort of. Did it like recently come out?
Yeah, I think last year it was for the 10-year anniversary of that game. So it's not that strange. But I can't get over the character models. Like one of the main characters in that game, a guy called Maze, which is basically the hat master of the hero academy that you go to. In the original game, he was quite dark-skinned, and for some inexplicable reason in this version, he's light-skinned. Like, not white, but light-skinned. It's weird. And he doesn't look like the same character. All of that. Oh, there's a lot of bloom lighting and depth of field stuff. Yeah, I find it hard to recommend. It's not bad, but it's not great either. I prefer the original one, but I'll keep playing this one and see it through until the end.
Cool. Anything else?
Well, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which we talk about in the Game Club video. And other than that, nothing out of the ordinary, or at least nothing worth mentioning.
Cool, man. All right, let's slide on over here to Enrique. What you been playing?
I've actually been finishing up a little bit of Shadowrun Hong Kong, and I actually picked up Destiny again. So I've been having fun so far.
So is the 2.0 patch as good as people tell me it is. Because I want to jump back into it as well, but I don't know.
I feel like a lot of it is, I don't want to say hive mentality because that has like a negative connotation, but it kind of has a bit of a proximity effect where there's a lot of people playing again, and I think that's why the game seems so much more attractive now. It's not necessarily the patch, it's just that there's more people on.
Right.
The patch smooths some things over and does some really cool like quality of life improvements with like I guess the way the bounty is distributed. You can actually they added kiosk where you can replay story missions, which is actually kind of cool. You can play them at a harder difficulty in a party. The whole I guess like there's new weapons you can kind of like take for a test run and level them up. So I mean it's got some nice little variety, but again, the reason I'm enjoying it is because suddenly I have friends that are back on Destiny now. And that's for me that was like the main drive to keep playing Destiny was just that hey, let's get on and do a few strikes, or like, hey, let's get on and do some bounties. Regardless of whether the bounty just is smashing your head like against the wall for an hour, the fact that you're doing it with people makes it more enjoyable.
Right. I heard they completely reworked the whole light system.
Yeah, which is it's weird because now there's an actual level, so you actually gain experience and you level up your character like you did beforehand. And the light level, it just gives you like a passive increase to your attack power and defense and all that.
Right.
And it's calculated by, I guess, skills and things like that. So it's interesting. Light level feels almost like gear score in a way from WoW.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like the number itself acts like a summary of what your current like ability level is at right now in terms of like skills and damage you can do. So, I mean, it's kind of neat. But like I said, I'm enjoying it because I'm playing with people again. And for me, that's always been the attraction for the Destiny.
Yeah. What about the Taken King? What about the new content?
That is not out till next week.
Oh, okay. So I'm running a bit ahead of myself there. All right.
Yeah, but like I said, they added a lot of really cool like quality of life improvements. They actually organized your freaking inventory out, which was thank God. When you go to the bank slot, you actually have a separate slot for weapons, armor, emblems, and stuff like that. So it's more organized. There's more inventory space. The kiosk thing is really cool. They actually have like a legendary armor and weapon blueprint kiosk now. So if you had a really cool legendary item that you just happen to destroy for whatever reason, you can actually go to the kiosk and rebuild it again, which is really nice.
It's all in the tower now.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, one closing question, if I may. Dinklebot or Nolanbot?
Nolanbot has grown on me. And he sounds a little awkward at first because he puts so much more emotion behind the voice, and it gives it like a different tone thematically, but there's a really cool video online where somebody on YouTube, they took the quotes from Dinklebot and put them side by side with the quotes from Nolan, and it's really cool because you can actually see Dinklebot really was dead on delivery a lot of the time. Like you could tell he phoned it. It was really boring, and he just looked like he didn't want to do it. So when you hear that compared to like how much enthusiasm and how much character Nolan puts into the character's voice, it makes a huge difference.
Right. Okay. No more further questions. The prosecution rests.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's worth picking up, like, paying the $40 for the expansion coming out. But I'd say if you still own Destiny, it's worth just getting back on to see, if things have smoothed over for you a little bit.
I need to rebuy it then.
I mean, if you're going to rebuy it, you might as well just pay the $20, $30 extra and get the Taken King version.
Yeah, exactly. I think
because it comes with all the DLC.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to go do that. Let's team up soonish and play together.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if I'm being petty, but I'm a little annoyed that as a player that has Destiny, I have to pay a full $40 for the expansion, whereas somebody coming fresh can just pay $60 and get all 3 expansions that have released.
Yeah, but haven't you heard? The expansion is so good that it'll make you just want to throw money at the screen. Luke Smith.
But I mean, it's fun. So I mean, I've been doing that, and like I said, Hong Kong, Shadowrun Hong Kong, which is actually really fun now that I've actually played a little bit more. I'd say the story isn't as good as Dragon's Fall, but the characters and narrative is actually a lot better. They do a better job of like giving each character a little bit more personality, so it feels like you're talking to real people. And your character actually has a personality that grows as you kind of go through dialogue options, so it really does feel like you're kind of interjecting yourself in the story.
Cool.
That's been kind of pretty much it this week.
Well, that sounds pretty fun, man. I like the fact that they keep making those Shadowrun games. I think that's great. I keep wanting to play them, but not quite yet. But I'm glad they're still making it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Hey, Ryan, what you been playing this week?
So I've been playing, since I've been on the go so much this week, I've been playing a little game on my phone called Geodefense. And I think it's for iOS only. But it's a game that I played, I think I played it a lot my first year of college, so it's a few years old by now. But it's a little tower defense game, and you, it's just like every other tower defense game. You have these little towers, and they shoot the little guys. But it just, it looks good. Like, I don't want to say it's the most amazing looking game in the world, but I just like the way it looks, and I like the way it feels and the way it plays. And it's really difficult. I kind of think it's more difficult because they send a ton of creeps at you rather than cool level design.
Is it like is it a towers on a track kind of tower defense, or like an open field kind of tower?
No, on a track. And they do have some pretty cool and interesting levels, but I feel like the difficulty comes from just how many they're throwing at you at one time. Yeah, I mean, it's kept me very entertained. I get addicted to that kind of stuff, so it's it worked out well.
Those games never really clicked with me for some reason.
Really?
Yeah.
No, me neither. And I'll tell you exactly why. It's because there's one right way to do it.
Yeah, it's a formula, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and in trying to find that right way, every time you try it and do it wrong, it takes, 15, 20 minutes to go through the level to try something else.
Yeah, but that's the thing with you, Sam. You are a freak when it comes to figuring out how systems work. You'll probably make that game your bitch within 10 minutes.
But I like rapid iteration. You know what I mean? And it seems like in tower defense games, it's always like the last two waves where you realize, oh crap, I didn't set that up right. And then you have to do it all over again. It's the worst. That's why they don't work for me, personally.
So do you like games like Hotline Miami then?
I haven't played much of that, but the little bit I've played, I liked a pretty good bit. The controls felt a little weird, but I haven't really had time to sink into it and really kind of jam on it. But the little bit I played, I liked. It seemed pretty good. You're right. It's got that feel to it. The rapid, like, okay, that didn't work. Let's try this. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try this. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, because when I played it, it actually reminds me of a tower defense game in the way that it's just basically, I guess it's almost like a reverse tower defense where it's your character and you're just running through a level, killing all the little defense, the little defense points, which are other characters. But the thing that makes it good is the fact that when you die, it's an instant restart. You don't have to go through that whole 10, 20 minutes of like waves going through. It's literally just die, press R, restart, and then go at it again. It's actually a lot quicker pace. So I think that's cool. Lends itself.
And that's how I even get, if like for platform games, that's how I end up playing against myself, because once you know a certain part of it, you just try to burn through it, but then you're going too fast, so you're not paying attention and doing things the way you used to, and you end up dying, and it's just like, horrible.
Super Meat Boy.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Oh man.
No.
Game Club.
No, please.
But like my wife, for example, loves Pixel Junk Monsters, and that is the slowest tower defense game in the entire world. But I mean, playing with her is all right. But God, dude, that game just takes so long. But it's good. I mean, the art style's fun. Anything else, Ryan?
No, that was it. I was super busy this week, unfortunately. So
that's good.
Oh well.
No, stay busy. It's good. As for me, more Phantom Pain, because that's still rocking and rolling. And I got an email and they said it was their second birthday, so I picked up a game called Card Hunter again. And Card Hunter is like an isometric turn-based tactics game, and the visual style is that all your characters are little cardboard cutout figures. So it's sort of, they put the trappings on it like you're playing through a Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Oh yeah, that looks cool.
What's it called?
I'm looking at pictures of it
it's
right now.
It's called Card Hunter.
Huh. Might have to check that out.
Yeah, and so you basically put a deck together, and then every turn you draw cards from your deck, and those are the things that you can do. And then it's just like any other game like that, Try to manage your deck for the probability to get the things you want, use what you have in the moment, that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun. And I played it a while back, and then every so often they send an email that they're doing some promotional thing, and I go, yeah, okay, cool. I'll jump back in there again. And it's on Steam now, which is nice.
Cool.
It's got a 9 out of 10 on Steam.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. The tactics are really great. And one of the things I was reading about that I really want to try is they put a draft mode in, so that when you're playing multiplayer, it's not, all the cards that you've assembled against all the cards somebody else has assembled, but it's, you both get a certain selection and pick your cards and try and do it that way. And draft has always been my favorite way to play any kind of competitive card game. So I'm excited to give that another shot. But mostly I just kind of tinkered around with the story some while they were giving out rare items and stuff like that.
Cool.
But it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I recommend it. And it's free, so why not? Why not jump on there and play around? They do really great work, and it's a shame to see that game hasn't gotten more attention.
I'll check it out.
Than it currently has. Okay. So I guess that about wraps up our week. You guys want to talk about some topics?
Yeah. In the past, we have established that video games are in fact a thing. And that kind of made me think, what is a game? Because we have this concept of what a game is. It's something with a set of rules and participants, and there's a score and a victor and a loser and that kind of thing. But we're seeing a lot of games now that don't really follow that kind of framework, I guess. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think? What are the basic requirements for something to be called a game?
I think it's just structured playing that we do for enjoyment.
But we have a lot of games that are free play.
But there's still a certain structure to them. I mean, and case in point, when we played the Stanley Parable a while ago, it's a game that perfectly showcases that, where you think you have all this freedom, but in reality, you're really limited to what the developer sets, like whatever parameters the developer sets for you. So regardless of how open world something might be, there is still always going to be some degree of structure.
I think you need an objective and some sort of struggle to reach that objective, whether it's very little struggle or a very large amount of struggle. There has to be, and maybe struggle is the wrong word, but there has to be some sort of difficulty there to get to the thing, no matter how minor. So whether it's figuring something out or whether it's being able to hit buttons in the right order, but there's got to be something there to get you to the objective.
How tangible does that objective have to be, though? Because a game like Minecraft doesn't really have an objective per se.
I guess that's true. You could say that. Although I imagine that Minecraft is just something where you make your own objective. And in that case, that's probably just as legitimate. There's still an objective there. It just happens to be whatever you decide it to be. But there's still, no matter what you choose the objective to be, there's still a pathway to get there. You have to assemble blocks or whatever you do in Minecraft. I don't know. Minecraft. There's still like a system. There's a number of systems in place there that require you to interact with them to get to the final objective.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things. I mean, we do things in our regular lives. We set objectives and we struggle to reach them, but we don't consider those things games. So what?
Well, I mean, it depends. I think another key feature is that it has to be done for enjoyment. Like, it has to be something that you consciously select to do because you will get some sort of stimulus out of it.
Yeah, I think a reward is one of the key things.
I think you're right.
Like, there has to be a reward or it's not a game. Like, why? And I don't know. I'm kind of toying around with the idea that the objective needs to be arbitrary. Like, it's an arbitrary task that you've gone after.
I don't know if the objective is that important of a thing.
Yeah, because the objective could even be the mechanics. You have to overcome the mechanics. You have to work against them, or you have to overcome them.
Because I mean, like, when I think of games, and I mean, I'm stepping away a little bit from like the digital definition for video games, but even something as playing peekaboo with a baby, that's still, I would still consider that a game, and there's no real objective per se.
Well, to make the baby laugh. Because if you're playing peekaboo and the baby's not responding, you're going to stop because you can't reach your objective.
Or objective might be the wrong word, but it's just that there's a
goal.
There's a win state and a fail state. You can do this thing.
Fail state's not necessary.
I don't know.
Well, a win state's not necessary either. You can't win Pac-Man. Is there a max score in Pac-Man? I think there is a max score in Pac-Man, actually.
Well, you get to the glitch screen. I don't know if you can beat that one. What is it?
Okay.
250?
Well, there are games out there you can't win.
All right. Well, consider in that case that winning is getting as far as you can, I suppose.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to, I guess in that case, the win state and fail state would be directly tied to whether or not you're getting enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I don't know. I guess even then, because even if you don't enjoy it, it doesn't really necessarily negate it from being a game. It's just a game that you're not enjoying.
Damn, that's also true.
And I don't think failure states are necessary, to be honest, because you've got a lot of narrative experience, stuff like Dear Esther, for instance. There's been a lot of arguing on the internet over whether this is a game or not, but it doesn't have an implied failure state or even an implied win state, as it were. Not in a traditional sense, at least, but it's still a game.
I haven't played Dear Esther, so have you played it?
I have, yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a couple questions. Is there ever a point where you can't advance unless you figure something out?
No.
So your sort of progress through the game is never impeded in any way?
I don't believe so, no. It's been quite some time since I last played it.
Right.
Have any of you played it? Before I'm saying something that is just blatantly untrue because I'm misremembering it. But as far as I'm aware, you just walk around and you get fed bits of story.
Not a game.
Really?
Well, it still requires input from you to push the story forward. So it's still an interactive thing. And you are going by only one definition of what a game is. I'm looking at a dictionary right now, right? And the term game has got two different meanings. Like, it's a form of competitive activity or sport played according to rules, or an activity that one engages in for amusement. And that one is purely for amusement.
That second one
It's
is
really vague,
so way too vague. An activity that somebody does for amusement. That doesn't cover the sort of context that I would personally like put on game. And I think the first one where it says rules, that's kind of coming closer.
Like the definition that I found is a game is structured playing, usually undertaken for enjoyment. So it's kind of a combination of the two, but one of the key features it has is that it has to have some kind of structure.
Yeah, I think. I was just thinking that one of the fundamental things is you have to have structure or parameters, something that's predetermined that everyone has to agree to.
I mean, like no matter how small or how large and complicated those things are, you need something like that in there. If it was like if you just booted a game up and you were in a hallway and you pressed W and then eventually you got to the end of the hallway. So I guess you could technically call that a game, just not a very good one.
Yeah.
But I would personally call that not a game because we have to draw the bar or draw the line somewhere.
Do we, though?
Well, I think so. I think that you need to break it out and you need to basically get rid of that vagueness by branching out definitions and maybe adding some adjectives to adjust it in a way that makes sense.
As far as I'm concerned, a game is something, it's an experience, an interactive experience. And with that, I mean, it needs you to progress. And that is basically it.
I mean, you could call a book a game then because you have to turn the pages.
That's a good point, actually, but I don't know. It's apples and oranges a bit, isn't it?
Well, because there's no real set parameters within a book. I mean, I don't think turning a page like constitutes a parameter.
The story's not going to move forward unless you conduct an action, right? So if that's like the definition we use, then it fits it because like when you bring the physical object into it, all of a sudden it becomes a game.
It seems like nitpicking this.
Well, no, because
it's all semantics. This is absolutely a semantic argument that we're going to have.
Yeah,
this is 100%. Like you just have to accept that and roll with it. But according to your second definition, right? Like an activity
not mine.
that somebody. Okay, sorry. The Oxford Dictionary's second definition, so an activity that somebody takes on for amusement. That's way too broad.
Yeah, it's too broad.
No, recreational activity.
Well, I think if we're using a book, you have to have your framework, your structure, which is the book itself. You have to have your progression. You need input from the person to advance, so that would be you're turning the page. And then I think another one of the fundamental things has to be an objective. So an example would be, you read this book as fast as you can. The objective is now is as fast as I can, and now it's a game.
Yeah. Or if it's a choose your own adventure type book where you need to choose where the story's going. Play a choice could instantly make it a game.
I don't know if it's necessarily choice, but choice or calculation, one of the two.
What about visual novels?
Not games. Not games. They're visual novels. The act of making a choice isn't enough to count.
You don't think it's mutually inclusive to what a game is?
In some ways, like I can see that argument, but I just feel like you need something that if you don't do this thing, it's going to stop. And you say, okay, all right, well, in a visual novel, if you don't choose one pathway or the other, then it stops. So then your act of choosing one way or the other is the progression system, right? But for some reason, I don't think that's enough. I don't know why. And it's probably got something to do with the fact that it doesn't really affect what's behind those doors when you choose what door to open.
Yeah. So if you're playing a visual novel and it doesn't matter what you pick, I'd say that's just an interactive experience, for lack of a better term, I guess. But I think if you're playing a visual novel and your choice changes the story, I feel like that's a game.
Well, you've got more than enough games that are very linear. Like there is no player choice.
I mean, Mario's for one of them.
Yeah, and that is most certainly a game.
And that's why I think you need a fail state.
No, you need systems. You need systems. You need boundaries that you have to work against. You have to overcome the systems in a game. And it doesn't need to have a failure state.
Well, no, I think those are like intrinsically tied to each other because I think those boundaries can create a fail state. I don't think it's necessary, but I think they are a product of it.
Because it's like, that's what lets you know that like that wasn't the way to do that, or that wasn't the way to master that, or that wasn't the way to move forward towards the objective. Like it's feedback. maybe. Like, instead of saying fail state, maybe just say feedback.
Because you've got some games that go on regardless of you screwing it up. Good example would be like, I haven't played this game myself, but friends of mine have played it, Until Dawn. If one of the characters dies, which would be a failure state in any other game, the game just goes on, but without that character.
Yeah. So I feel like whatever that action is that you're taking, the game also has to have feedback to tell you whether you did that right or you did that wrong.
Sometimes there is no right or wrong. Sometimes it's just play a choice, and there's no good or bad.
Okay, taking a step back. All right, reading a book. Why would you consider reading a book not a game?
Because it hasn't got those systems that you need to overcome, apart from the physical limitations of you having to turn the page or you can't progress. But games also, this is a point that an Irish comedian brought up, Dara O'Brien. He said games are the only form of medium that can bar entrance to the rest of the content if you're not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like a book is not going to ask you to write an essay before you can turn the page. But a game can just flat out deny you access to a portion of the game if you're not good enough. But is that a failure state? I don't think it is. It's an obstacle that you need to overcome. But there is no, there is no failing. There is only stagnation, or there is overcoming.
I could get behind that. That kind of makes sense to me. And I guess maybe we're ourselves going a bit too broad by trying to define what a game is, and maybe we should just say, what is the difference between video games and interactive experiences and visual novels?
Still don't fully agree, because some narrative experiences are still games.
I don't think that Telltale's The Walking Dead is a video game.
Really?
What?
So let's start there.
Okay.
Okay.
Make your case.
Now, your next question is, why don't I think that?
Yeah.
And it's because you can't, there's nothing to like learn or become better at. You're just drifting through the experience. And it's a good one, but you just move through it, but you don't need to actually get better at anything. You don't need to improve your skills in any way.
I think you have to improve in that game, your ability to weigh options in a short time.
Yeah.
But you don't. Because if you can choose whichever one you want. It doesn't matter.
But yeah, it does. It changes the story.
But so what? It's not, you're still going to finish that game. You're still going to get to the end, and it might not be the end you want.
Well, no, because there's fail states and there's game overs. I mean, at the very beginning, when you're playing as Lee and you first run to Clementine, there's a zombie that attacks you in the kitchen, and if you're not quick enough to push the zombie, with the quick time event to push the zombie off you and grab the item, you can die. That gives you a game over screen right there.
It has a fail state.
Yeah, but I think another fail state in that game is keeping the characters you want to keep. Because there's times in that game where you choose who lives and dies, and if one of the people you want in your party dies, you failed.
Okay, that's true, but there's no execution challenge there. You just see that and you go, okay, and you reload that save and you do it the opposite way.
But you can do that in pretty much every game. The choice is the execution.
That goes into manipulating the game at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're bringing the element of like save scumming.
I would put something in there to say that I want some type of execution challenge.
Yeah, but the choice in those games is the execution.
Yeah.
You can't possibly get it right the first time, though.
But a lot of the time there is no real right or wrong. The game goes on with the story. It just goes into a different branch. And there are failure states. Like if you die or something that is absolutely vital to the story goes wrong, then it's a game over. But other than that,
it's an easy game. I think it's an easy game, but I still think it's a game.
Emotionally very hard, mechanically piss poor, just really easy.
That's fair. Okay,
but it's still a game.
I'll give you that.
It's still a game.
I'll give you that. That has enough. That has enough to be considered a video game.
Okay, so let's try to work the other way. What's something that has come very close to being a game but isn't? If The Walking Dead is something that is a game but is very close to not being one, what's a I guess in quotes, a game that isn't quite a game? Like, what's that game? Is it on PS3? Journey? Does that have any? I never played it, but
it's got a win state. It's got a story that you need to progress through.
Mm-hmm. But does it have a fail state at all?
It does.
There you go.
Okay. Never mind.
I mean, what about that succulent thing? Viridity.
That is not a game.
Okay, for the people listening who don't know what that is.
Okay. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. It's Viridi, I think. Is that it? Viridi?
That's probably close.
Okay, it's this thing you download. It's on Steam. It's for free, and it's a succulent simulation. So you
is it that plant one?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
pick your pot, you pick your plant, like your seeds and stuff, and then in real time, a succulent grows.
Can it die?
I think so.
That's your fail state. So it needs input from you in order to get the thing that you want, which is for the thing to live.
Also a game, but not a good one.
But the only thing that differs from real life in that situation is this plant's on the screen and a real plant is in a pot. So is watering your plants a video game?
Apparently.
Maybe if you do it for fun and the fail state is the plant dying in real life.
Yeah, but I feel like that's just a situation. Like,
But
No, but
you can say that of everything.
Consider
in
that a
video
game
games.
though, because
Yeah.
there's almost no structure to it whatsoever.
yeah, I wouldn't consider it a game. Where I think we're getting now too broad.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's pretty hard to put your finger
It's
on
hard.
what a game is and what isn't a game.
Like I told you guys before, in one of my classes, we've been talking about what an image is, or like what a picture is, for 3 weeks. And I'm sure you could go just as long about what a video game is.
I'm
You know?
slowly starting to get the feeling that we've bitten off more than we can chew.
Yeah, in a 20-minute segment.
Like that plant growing simulator you're talking about, like that in and of itself isn't a game. But if you were to add some kind of structured objective, like, hey, you have to raise as many of these as you can within a set time frame, then it becomes a game because you do have that overlying structure
Okay.
put on it.
But yeah, I guess that game does have it has the framework. You're given a framework, you're given an objective, which is make the plants grow, but you're not really given a set of rules, are you? I mean, you can overwater your plants, but that's about it.
It's still something, though. And like Chris said, if they can die, then, you have both sides of the coin. You can do well and you can do poorly.
That goes back to cops if it was real life. If you're watering a plant in real life, that's not a game.
Yeah.
Because I think it's because there's no arbitrary rules to it.
Yeah, like, I think you can make it a game if you add that layer of like a structured objective to achieve. But until you do that, it's just an action you're taking.
So in Verity, you have your framework, you have your objective, but you don't have the kind of rules you need for a video game. So you have the rules that say you need to keep your plant alive or it will die, but you don't have an arbitrary rule that situation could exist without that rule. So you don't have grow the plant in this amount of time, because in the end, this amount of time is completely doesn't matter. Or water this many plants or grow this many plants. That's also another arbitrary rule. You're still following all the other things without it, but it's that thing that makes it. It's that rule that makes it a game.
Yeah, and I guess to piggyback off that, I think the enjoyment you get from the game itself stems directly from that structured rule set that lets you achieve that goal. Like, what do you call it? Like Vivendi? What is it called?
Verity.
Verity. It has mechanics for the sake of existing because it needs that. But other than that, there's actually no objective to it whatsoever.
It's got achievements like grow this plant, grow that plant.
I mean, I don't think achievements should be like a caliber of like what a game is or not.
So maybe a game is something that has designed mechanics. Maybe that is the baseline.
That doesn't seem too bad.
Yeah, maybe you should check if there's are there things between me and doing what I want in this game.
And is there some sort of enjoyment in the struggle? Like,
Yeah.
is there enjoyment in the challenge?
Yeah, I think a game has to have, I guess, a structured way of achieving a goal, and you derive enjoyment from that structure.
That's a definition I can definitely get behind. Have we reached consensus?
I think that's as close as we're gonna get.
We have reached a consensus.
Fuck
Good.
this discussion, it made me uncomfortable.
This is a very. I think this is a one we'll have to leave open. Because we've come to a consensus, but I don't know. I got to think about it more.
To be continued. We've come a long way since the 8-bit days in terms of music. Today we've got like full orchestral soundtracks. We've got fantastic sound design, and I wanted to talk about that because to me, as a musician, that is one of the most interesting things about modern game development is how far audio has come and how sophisticated audio has become in video games. And I just wanted to see if you guys ever notice when audio is done correctly, and if you guys have favorite soundtracks, maybe?
I don't, but I think that's why it's amazing. I think that when video game music is at its best, you almost don't notice it, except for you find yourself humming it later on in the day and you can't remember where it came from.
Sound design, yes. Music, no. Music is made to add something to the atmosphere of a situation in a game. I mean, it feels awesome when you're killing that giant monster and there's a huge orchestral suite in the back playing, sort of egging you on. Sound design, when sound design is done well, you don't notice it, but it helps you get immersed into games.
I know with music, there's what is it? Transistor, Bastion, and Hotline Miami 1 and 2. I've actually gone out and purchased those soundtracks because the music is so memorable.
Wow. Oh man, Transistor's music is really, really good.
Although I will say something though, when it comes to, I guess, sound effects, I think there is something to say about really well done sound effects that are immediately recognizable. Last night I was actually over at, my girlfriend, we were at one of her coworkers. He had kind of like a dinner with a group of people. And there was somebody that was playing Final Fantasy on their iPhone. And they were scrolling through the menu and it was making that little, I guess, like the twinkle sound it does when the arrow switches, like, menu. And I immediately recognized it and my ears perked up. I'm like, wait, I know that sound. Somebody's playing Final Fantasy. And it just goes to show you, really well, because I remember that sound, it's very clean, very crisp, very distinctive. And I think he was playing Final Fantasy VII, but a game that is that old, the fact that I can still recognize it immediately off the bat and know, hey, yeah, that is definitely Final Fantasy. It's like Legend of Zelda, that very distinctive, you found the thing whenever you open a treasure chest. Like, you will recognize that sound, and that's an example of really well done sound design.
What's cool about that is you were saying Final Fantasy VII, which is a game I was really attached to when I was little, and it's like I've forgotten. I couldn't pull some sounds out of my head from Final Fantasy VII, but if I hear them, I know immediately. I know what game that was from, like the Chocobo song and that kind of thing. I couldn't hum the Chocobo song right now, but I know if I heard it, I would know it. And I think that's so cool.
Yeah, or like the weird sound when you jump on the back of Yoshi in Super Mario World for the first time.
Well, when you go to its basics, to basic sound design and positional audio, I've got a couple of examples of games that I think did it very, very well. One of them is the Battlefield series, and most specifically Battlefield 3. If you play that game on a 5.1 surround system, you will get so immersed into the game world. The way that the bullets sound when they fly past your head, the way an explosion sounds when it's 2 blocks away from you, and it's like that muffled low rumble instead of like a full-blown explosion sound. It makes you so much more aware of where you are, and it makes it so much easier to get drawn into the game world. The other game that I think really stands out in terms of sound design and field recordings are recordings that you make out and about, is World of Warcraft. I remember one of the very first rivers I came across in that game. I could hear the water while I was approaching, and the position changed from where as I walked along it or walked over it, and I thought that was really, really great. It's a simple thing. It's just a stream of water, but that sound being there and the sound volume changing depending on where you are makes the game world feel more alive. Where you hear birds birds chirping in the background and stuff like that, and stuff like that really pulls me into the games. And when it's done really, really well, it becomes that much easier to sort of forget that you are in your own home, sitting behind your computer playing a game. It makes it easier to believe that you're actually there.
Yeah, that's true. It's about engaging more of the senses, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got the eyes and you can't really get touch, so you need to get the most out of the eyes and ears that you can. So obviously putting more ambient sounds in there is really important.
Yeah, even something as simple as the sound of the wind blowing through a hallway when you're indoors in some building that has an open door somewhere. Even that gives your senses enough context for the situation.
Yeah, you mentioned World of Warcraft, and I think MMOs have pretty consistently impressed me with their both their music and their sound design. Especially their music. If you want to be brought back to a place in a video game, play an MMO for a few years and then hear that song, and you're instantly brought back.
Good example is the Grizzly Hills soundtrack from the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, with the nickel harpa, and they call that instrument. It's a bowed instrument from Norway, I believe, and that plays the main theme while you're walking through that zone. It instantly puts you into that mood, I think.
Like you were mentioning about, I guess, the ambient sounds that does a lot. I know the Monster Hunter series recently started doing that because one of the mechanics the game has is kind of like monster roars, that whenever those creatures give a really loud roar, it'll incapacitate your hunter. But they've recently expanded it now to where, if you're playing a multiplayer game, you can actually hear a monster's roar at varying volumes depending how far you are away from it in different zones, which I thought is a cute little detail.
It is, especially if you're made aware of the presence of the monster being there before you actually see it.
Yeah.
All right, so soundtracks. There's one soundtrack that is my absolute favorite because of how it plays into the game world itself, and that is the soundtrack for Mirror's Edge. You've probably all played Mirror's Edge. The way that the game looks, it's very, very sterile, very basic. A lot of red and blue and green with a lot of whites everywhere. And the soundtrack is brilliant because it sounds the way the game looks. The music is very minimalistic, very sparse, only has the basics. And it just adds so much more to the city. It gives so much atmosphere to the city. Not in the least because it's made by Solar Fields. He's a Swedish producer, goes by the name of Magnus Bergerson, I believe. And that guy is a genius. I'm really, really glad that he's coming back for the second one. But his soundtrack is the thing that stands out to me the most about that game. Not even the gameplay. I remember that game by its music.
Do you think, is there any sort of way that do they write that music in a certain way to cater to the fact that it's going to be repeated? Like, is the repetition a unique challenge for video games as far as music composition goes?
Well, you've got dynamic audio, of course, like battle themes that start playing when you engage others in combat, and more like ambient, subdued music from when you're just walking around. And in the case of Mirror's Edge, biggest part of the soundtrack is just ambient music and a style of music called IDM, which stands for Intelligent Dance Music. It's in no way intelligent or dance music. It's just a name people gave to very glitchy music. And ambient music, by its very nature, sits in the background. It's there, but it's not intrusive in any way, shape, or form. It just adds to the atmosphere.
Yeah, I wonder, well, I mean, first of all, because it's got a loop. You know, like generally speaking, if somebody stays in the same area, the music has to loop, but in a way that's not jarring.
Yeah, which is why ambient music is often used in games, because you can sort of repeat that and nobody will notice it.
And the second thing is, do you think that maybe the video game soundtracks appeal to you more if it's a game where you hear that song more in a way that like repetition breeds familiarity?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily. It does happen. But on the whole, no. I think a soundtrack is memorable when it's playing at the exact right moments, and it doesn't need to repeat itself. If it's only one specific song in one specific part of the game, I'll be fine with that, and I will probably remember the game by that song if it's really, really good.
Yeah,
I mean, main themes exist for a reason.
Going along with that, Hotline Miami, I think that's probably the first game that really made me appreciate a game's soundtrack. Because it doesn't repeat a soundtrack once, there's a different song for every level you're playing. There's some ambient music that kind of repeats when you're, I guess, in the in-between levels, but the actual levels themselves, completely different song. And I don't know how much work went into this, but it almost seems like the music that they're playing, the particular song for the level, seems to key you up almost perfectly with the pacing of the level in terms of where the enemies are laid out. So as you're playing it, you kind of get into this, this kind of feedback loop where this song is kind of pumping you up and you're basing your moves, on the pace of the song, and it kind of encourages you to go at a certain pace. And again, like that, the soundtrack for both games is phenomenal because of that. And they don't repeat a single song more than once.
Yeah, that's interesting. For me, it's always been much more of a background thing. So it's interesting to hear you guys talk about how it's made such an impression on you.
Yeah, there are some game soundtracks that I just listen to, once a week. A good example would be the Life is Strange soundtrack, which has made such an impression on me because, again, it's it's a soundtrack that sounds the way the game feels and looks. It's very solemn.
Mhm.
It's very soft-spoken and very emotional and very acoustic, sort of indie, like the game basically is an indie movie in game form. And when the music supplements the subject matter so well, it just sticks with me for years to come. I mean, I can't remember half the levels in Unreal Tournament, but I know some of the songs that play in that game by heart.
I think that's important. I think that's really important because, like we said, you're only offered a certain number of senses, when playing a game.
Yeah.
So it's like if they don't make something so visually memorable, they've got to make it audibly memorable, and that's the only way. That's the only I don't want to say the only way to create atmosphere, but that's largely a part of creating an atmosphere in a game is the music.
Yeah, and music is becoming so important in games now because a lot more people are starting to recognize music as an essential part of the game experience. It was always an essential part of the experience, but more and more people seem to be sort of aware that the music is there, and more developers are throwing insane amounts of money into music and audio departments.
I think that's definitely true. I mean,
It is,
reading reviews, like over the last, certain span of time, you can see where nobody ever mentioned the game music unless it was, a very high point or the game revolved around music, and then it sort of crept in to become a staple now.
Because
exactly.
the music really adds something to the experience. I mean, imagine playing Halo without the music. It'd be...
I was just about to say
It would be...
Halo, yeah.
I mean, it'd still be Halo. It'd still be a fun game, but it wouldn't have the same feeling as Halo with music. Or, I mean, even playing something like Pokemon without the music would be a worse experience. So I think they're justified, in my opinion, in pouring all this money into music because I think it's a huge part of the experience. Just like it is in film, I think it's just as big in games, if not bigger.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because I think we've reached a point where music and sound really help add to the aesthetic and overall tone of the game now. And like you said, playing Halo without the music, it wouldn't be the same experience.
And let's not forget the genre that is most dependent on perfect sound design, and that's horror. Horror would not be half as scary if it had just 8-bit sounds or, very amateurishly created ambient music. Yeah. Think of something like PT. Not a lot of stuff happens in that game, but the sound makes it one of the tensest experience I have ever had.
Horror's an even better example because it's both. It's like the combination of when to use sound and when to not use it to really sort of, bolster that ultimate goal of scaring your pants off.
Yeah. PT does it really well because by the time you realize that something has changed in the music, it's already too late, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, and I think with the current games that are popular, I feel like, I don't want to say we're losing our appreciation for music, but I think it's underappreciated.
I don't agree at all.
Really?
At all. No.
How come?
Some of the games that I have played this year, some of my favorites, Life is Strange and The Witcher 3. Every single one I've spoken to who played that game said that the music's fucking brilliant.
That is true. I suppose it's just because we play not totally different, but not similar sets of games. Like before the set of games I played now, I played League of Legends exclusively, and I had my music off. Counter-Strike, music off. DayZ, music off. Well, DayZ doesn't have music. And like all the games I play, I turn the music off because they're usually competitive, or the sound design is so much more important than the music in that game that when I go into a game that has good music, it's like it blows my mind kind of because I'm just so used to the silence and trying to hear every little footstep and thing,
Yeah, no, I don't think music's underappreciated. I mean, never before did we have like full orchestras doing world tours playing just video game music. And they mostly play stuff from the last 15 years.
Yeah, that's true.
Video game music is becoming increasingly more awesome in my professional opinion.
It's good music on its own a lot of the time.
Yeah, something like the Unreal Tournament soundtrack, even the original one, but the 2003 version and Unreal Tournament 3, I believe, those have the best soundtracks, and I listen to those soundtracks all the time, and I don't even like the games all that much. Like I said, I can't remember half the levels, but I do remember the music. I do.
Do you think that there's a line of delineation between good and catchy? Do you think that there's a difference between those two things? Like, because sometimes music is good or well made, but then there's also music that's just catchy. Like, are they both sides of the same coin? Like, as it applies to video games, sometimes I'll find myself, like The Witcher, for example, that weird, like, chanty thing, like the, right? Like, I was doing that just walking around my house when I was playing The Witcher. I don't know if that was a good song or a bad song, but it was catchy, right? So in video game design, is it, like, what's the goal? What should they strive for there?
I mean, I think context matters, because at that point, like, what do you personally consider good music? I think that's very subjective.
Soundtracks are a bit different. Soundtracks need to work in the context of the actual game. And if a sound effect or a short musical hit works, it's because it's been implemented at the exact right moment. It has to match the atmosphere, the activity that you're doing right at that moment.
You know, a good example is when I used to work at GameStop, we used to get a lot of game soundtracks in as pre-order bonuses.
Awesome.
And I remember for certain games, like I think Persona 4 had it, and I think Muramasa Blade on the PlayStation had it. And these games would come with a game soundtrack, and when you plug it in, it's just the orchestral background music from when you're playing the different levels in the game. And I know this is a matter of personal opinion, but I could not sit through a listen of those games whatsoever. Just putting the CD in my car, after maybe 5-10 minutes of it, I'm like, okay, this is boring. I really had no interest in this. However, when I'm playing it within the context of the game and I'm seeing it how it cues up with the overall aesthetic, for me, it's a lot more palpable. Yeah,
you missed the thing that the music was made for, and not all music works outside of the context of the games that the piece was written for. That's definitely true.
I think even on a broader scale, it just feels like that music was written to be ambient, but not like ambient when you're relaxing. I find the most enjoyment from something like the Guild Wars soundtrack. I love the soundtrack in both games, and it's like I can put those on while I'm cleaning or something like that, but I can't listen to it in my car.
But the Guild Wars 2 soundtrack, that is the soundtrack for getting shit done.
Oh yeah.
It's very upbeat.
I mean, that's like the commonly recommended thing, right? Is to put on video game music when you're doing something, because it's designed in a way that it doesn't take full concentration away from the task at hand. Like, video games inhabit that unique space where you're trying to do something while this music is playing, so it should enhance it, but not draw your attention away.
Interfere.
Right, yeah, it shouldn't interfere.
Yeah. Well, to sum it up, I'm very happy to be living in 2015, where developers seem to pour massive amounts of money into audio departments, and the soundtracks are getting better. We're getting larger names, like established names from the music industry, making the music now. I mean, Paul McCartney was doing Destiny, and that was a bit of a shit track, but you know what I mean? I mean, the big names are sort of coming to video games now, and it makes me very happy, both as a musician and as a player.
For Game Club this week, we played Vampire the Masquerade, and one of the things that stood out to me about that game was the fact that there were no objective markers. There were no waypoints, there were no paths, there were no maps, basically. And even though that game was only like 2 square city blocks, I still ended up getting turned around a little bit. And I started to think about a lot of the games that I've played recently all have these waypoint markers and these UI overlays, and this is where the objective is, sort of navigational tools, I suppose. And I just wonder if maybe that might take away a little bit from the experience, because in a certain amount, maybe finding that, having to look for something and then finding it is part of the overall experience. And I thought it was actually kind of a good thing, but I also think that maybe it's being overused now. Like, maybe there are situations where waypoints aren't the best idea, because it very much kind of focuses you in on this one thing and you're not kind of smelling the roses, and it sort of makes linearity in an unlinear environment. And so that sort of implied success is something that I wonder where the boundaries of it are, because what I assume when I see the waypoint markers in these games, it's like, okay, we know that eventually you can find this guy. And I'm like, I know eventually I can find this guy. Just tell me where he is. But maybe there's something to be gained from that struggle.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I don't think it's an implied success thing. It's a time efficiency thing, because those markers you usually see in open world games. And take, for instance, something like GTA, which is a huge game. If you don't have those markers there or your GPS there, you'll be searching until the cows come home. And that is time lost that you could have spent having fun or progressing the story. It's a tool that you can use. Plus, in a lot of games, you can just switch that off if you so desire. So you're not being forced into using it. It's an option.
Yeah, I chalk that up to quality of life improvements, because, I mean, the best example I can think of is World of Warcraft, where they never had that implemented as part of like the core game concept, but there were hundreds of add-ons for that. Like Quest Helper was like one of the more popular ones because, like Chris was saying, it's mainly used in open world games where there is so much ground to cover that finding a location is such a minuscule part of the overall game experience that at a certain point it just becomes more of a detriment the more time you spend looking for that specific point.
Yeah, it becomes frustrating, doesn't it? And you don't want to be frustrated while you play games.
Yeah, and like most players, like for them, like they're looking at the end goal, like, oh man, I can't wait to get out of this zone. So for them to be spending like 3-4 hours trying to find the location of something specific becomes more annoying than anything.
You'd put it in more of a streamlining sort of category?
Definitely. I think it just depends on the context of, how important finding that special location or finding where you're going is to the overall experience. If it's something as simple as like, hey, find me, 20 of these things, I think it's perfectly acceptable to have a waypoint because it streamlines that. But if you're looking for, like a game where finding a treasure is, like the main draw to like that particular level, then yeah, a waypoint would kind of defeat the purpose of it.
I would say that if those things are sort of necessary to gloss over this aspect of the game that isn't fun or is frustrating, then I'd have two questions. Number one, why even have it be there? Like, why even make it so that you need all this distance to cover? I guess that makes the world more expansive or whatever, but also, isn't it slightly lazy to just be able to drop a waypoint? Like, why not instead find a way to make that interesting?
Okay, what about Metal Gear Solid 5? Do you use waypoints in that?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
Well, because it's not about the traversal. It's more about the destination. So I get what you're saying.
Exactly.
Right. So, but the thing is, is it possible as we sort of decide, like, okay, I know I'm going to be able to get there eventually, so let me just show you the way, because I'd be frustrated about trying to find my way. Do you think that can creep into other aspects of the game? Because eventually I'm going to be able to do everything in the game, so why not make everything more streamlined?
But waypoints aren't really a progression thing. Well, technically they are, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Having all the other things pointed out to you, that is to the detriment of your experience, because you'll never have the feeling that you've accomplished something just purely by your wits. But having a waypoint there in a large open world map, and open world games are usually filled with stuff that you can go sightsee or whatever, it's just a convenience thing.
How did you guys feel about the way Dead Space did it, where I think you could hold a button and it would basically draw a line from where your character was to the area you needed to go?
Yeah, well, one, fuck that game, and two, that was pretty well done. I'm a coward, that's why I don't like Dead Space. But that was actually pretty well done, the light line thing.
That's what I'm worried. It's not waypoints in themselves, it's just sort of the assumption of success that I sort of find ever so slightly troubling. Because then how hard is it to eventually take away all the things that are kind of a struggle in a game? But you need a little bit of friction, like you need a little bit of challenge to do something. And I would sort of worry that maybe waypoints are the first steps along that road of not allowing the player to do anything wrong or allow them to do something that causes them to have a bad time.
I think there needs to be a cost to the waypoint. For example, one of my favorite uses of the waypoint system is in Guild Wars 2, and you have to first unlock the waypoint, and then second, I really like it because the way their quest system is set up, the quests kind of force you in a good way to explore the area around the waypoint. So I don't think you're just using the waypoint for the sake of time. You are using it for time, but you're not foregoing the exploration. That's what I want to say. You're still having to explore the area around it, and you're pretty much justifying like having this huge map but it's kind of seamless with the way they do quests. And then when you die or you want to use a waypoint, you have the option to run wherever you want to go for free, or you pay a percentage of your current money that's also based on how far away the waypoint is. If I'm going to go to a waypoint that's, within walking distance, it's going to be a really small amount of money. If I want to travel across the map, it's going to be a pretty big amount of money. So I don't know. I think there needs to be just a downside to using waypoints, because then like we talked about, it'll get too streamlined and it'll be a detriment to the game rather than a quality of life thing.
See, I'm on the opposite camp because at least for me, I feel like waypoints encourage me to explore, because when I'm playing, especially an open world game, the waypoint tells me this is where you need to go to progress the story. So I immediately know, okay, that's the place I should avoid if I want to explore. So it kind of gives me an encouragement to go, okay, well, I know if the waypoints tell me to go right, I'm going to check what's left here at no personal risk to myself of, missing anything.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm talking about, is the waypoint, like you open your map and you can just teleport there.
Yeah, you're talking about more fast travel though.
Yeah, fast travel. I'm not talking about like the thing on your mini map.
I think that's actually a really interesting point, because that's counter to my concern, which is that having these waypoints creates a tunnel, like makes a linear experience out of a giant open world, because it's destination.
I agree with Enrique about that. If we're talking about having a waypoint, like you need to go here to do the next thing, I like having those because then I know where not to go if I want to explore somewhere. I totally agree with that 100%.
Or when it's a very big open world, like for instance The Witcher 3, when I see that the waypoint for the next mission is on the other side of the map, I always get a bit giddy, like, oh, I'm gonna walk there. It's going to take me like 45 minutes. I'm going to see so much stuff.
Yeah.
It can be an encouragement to go exploring on the way to that thing.
I guess the downside is it does run the risk of you just watching a mini map, though.
Yeah. Especially if you have fast travel. The moment I start unlocking fast travel points, I start to use them more as opposed to just walking or driving there in the game.
Yeah, and maybe, part of the responsibility has got to fall on the player. If you want to explore, you got to explore. You can't expect them to force you into it, because if they did, you would complain about being forced into exploring.
Yeah, it's completely optional most of the time.
But going back to like Sam's example, I can agree with it to a degree, because there are games where the waypoint is completely useless, like Halo. Halo is quite possibly one of the more linear games you'll play, because there's only one direction you're usually going. Yeah. But that game still offers waypoints.
Oh, yeah, those checkpoint things.
I liked it. I think it was either Skyrim or Morrowind, but it was like they gave you like a quest journal, or you'd read a book and it actually had directions. Like you get to this weird rock, turn left, follow the path to the north. That stuff was pretty dang cool, and you lose that stuff by just saying drop a giant arrow from the sky to tell me exactly where this thing is.
But again, with those though, it goes back to what the context is, because when you look at the book and it says go to this rock and make 2 lefts and follow the creek, the discovery itself is what makes that quest fun. So, to give it a waypoint completely defeats the purpose of it. But when it comes to Skyrim, when it tell you, go to the village of Winterhold, you can put a waypoint on it just because, okay, well, that's just where I need to go in the grand scheme of things. It gives you a little bit of direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just find that I'm like less likely to go off that path. I'm looking at the compass with the arrow on it and just making sure I'm headed in that direction instead of looking at everything around me.
Yeah, but that's on you and not the marker point.
That's totally on me. You're absolutely right. That's totally on me. But it's just like how slowly will we slide into then just calling it quality of life improvements and glossing over other aspects of games?
That doesn't necessarily have to happen. I mean, you can have one convenient thing and that does not affect the rest.
Do you think that it's a natural result of the rise of the open world sort of system that we need
yes, without a doubt.
Direction finding method? Yeah, it's got to be, right?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like I keep saying, it's all within the context. Like when you get a quest point saying, hey, go to this town to talk to this NPC to carry on the like whatever chain of events, getting to finding the town itself has nothing to do with the overall story. It's just an arbitrary location. So a waypoint there is just to facilitate. Mm-hmm. It's when you get these quests that they specifically tell you that, hey, the journey itself is what you're supposed to get enjoyment from. That's when I think you don't want to have waypoints.
Or to sort of nudge you in the direction of a place that you've not been to yet.
Or why make me travel at all? Just so that I feel like I'm in a giant world? Is that
it's an option.
That's the jam?
It's an option. If you want to, you can. You don't have to, but you can. It's all about giving players choice, I believe. You can just fast travel everywhere if you wanted to, but you could also traverse that entire distance on foot.
I do like the way Skyrim kind of handled it, where it felt like it was a middle ground between what you find in Morrowind, where you would pick up a book and was like the Tale of Redcliffe. You'd hear you read a story about this sword that you could find in this cave, whatever, and it would add a quest marker. And if you wanted, you could click on the quest marker and it would actually hover over a certain cave. You couldn't fast travel to it or anything like that. It would just show you the direction of the cave. Where if you wanted to pursue that particular quest, it shows you which direction to go to. That seems like it just a little bit not as good as having to find that cave and then find that sword. It's kind of a catch-22 because on the one point I can see where you're going from, where you take away that genuine feel of discovery, but at the same time, how many players do you think would miss out on it if they weren't explicitly told, go here?
I don't think it detracts from the sense of wonder, because if it points you to something that you've not been to, it's still going to be a surprise what the marker points you towards. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true too. I noticed that glaring difference between what we have and what used to be, and I feel slightly odd about it, and I don't know why. But I think that you guys might have swayed me back the other way. It just seems like a Band-Aid, though. It just seems like a solution, like a quick solution to a problem instead of like a really well thought out good solution.
But it is a good solution, and it all comes down to it being completely optional. You can just learn the lay of the land and go there with just your own devices, or you can use a bit of help to get there instead if you don't feel like being kept in the dark all the time. That's what it comes down to. It's not a lazy design decision, I think. It's a convenient thing. Like Enrique said, it's a quality of life thing. And that it's completely optional makes all the difference.
All right, last week for our game club, we played Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and I think we all had a pretty good time. If you want to check out what we thought about that game, you can click on this annotation right here. That video should be up. And as for next week, what are we playing, Chris?
We are going to play one of my favorite games of the past 4 years, I think now, 3 or 4 years, and it's Borderlands 2.
Nice.
It's
all right.
Yeah, it's a fantastic co-op shooter, and you can play with 3 of your best buddies or your worst enemies. It depends on what kind of person you are. And since we are with 4 people, I think that we should schedule in some time to play together. It's a really cool game. It's a bit heavy on the memes every now and then, but it is legitimately hilarious. The art style is interesting, and the world of Pandora is a loot-filled treasure of wonder and mirth. So there, Borderlands 2.
That sounds great. I'm excited.
Fully supported.
Right. Make sure that you get the Game of the Year edition, because all the DLC is actually worth it, especially Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon's Keep, which is a huge, huge parody on Dungeons & Dragons and Game of Thrones, and it's absolutely hilarious.
Oh, that sounds fun. Cool. All right, so this week we'll be playing Borderlands 2. If you want to play along with us, send us your thoughts. Send us your comments. You can send those to selectcharacters@gmail.com or leave a comment on our YouTube channel. And that was episode 20. That was a pretty good one, right? As always, thank you so much for listening. You guys are our inspiration. Every number on that download counter gives us more joy than you could possibly imagine. But if you want to be more than just a statistic, feel free to send us an email, selectcharacters@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter, find us on Facebook, or our subreddit, reddit.com/r/selectcharacters. Chris did some nice work tidying that place up if you want to have some more discussion about some of these topics. You can also check out our YouTube channel where we got some good videos coming up, and that's where we do the game club. So lots of good stuff going on. Thank you once again, and have a great week.